If you're going to be good at something, it does take a while. Just enjoy the getting there. You're going to get fed up.
Because I've actually faced what are most people's worst fears and recovered from it, it's not as bad as you think. You know, I didn't lose my confidence.
And if necessary, don't take no for an answer.
The truth can hurt. Simon Cowell tends to deliver honest feedback. Check out his 10 rules of greatness.
The good thing about how I made a career was I was patient. So I would say to anybody still today, if you're going to be good at something, it does take a while. Just enjoy the getting there. You're going to get fed up, you're going to get disheartened, and people are going to tell you you're useless. Had all that. But what I can say, after about 15 or 20 years, I learned how to do something well. And I enjoyed that getting there as much as being there.
Are very important. Whether you're a sportsman or you're in business or you know, doing what I do where you make TV shows, nobody does this to become 77th. You know, you always strive to be more successful than your competition. And the day that stops, you have to stop doing this for a living, genuinely. You have to have that drive.
I think it depends what you want in your life. I mean, what I realized very young is that I didn't want to live in fear. All my years in school, I did live in fear that if you got something wrong, they would beat you. I mean, literally. So you were kind of nervous. And I was always scared that I could have a job, which I may not be very good in, and my boss could hate me. And if he hated me, he could fire me. And I thought I couldn't live my life like that. So I kind of prepared myself to be good at something where I wouldn't have to have a boss, and then I would only have myself to answer to. And then I wouldn't live in fear any longer. You really want to get good, you're the first in and you're the last out. And you listen rather than talking. Because if you're lucky in life and your eyes and ears are open, you may bump into somebody who can transform your life because they can teach you. But to meet that person, you've got to be receptive.
Everybody around you has an invisible sign on their head which says, make me feel important. And what I understood from that is that you've got to recognize that actually everyone around you wants to be recognized, wants to be appreciated, and you can get, particularly when I do what I do now, you can get very 1 degree where you just forget everyone around you, everyone who's worked hard. And I try and remember that when I make a show, is that everyone's played a part in it. That's why I don't put my name, for instance, on the shows. I don't like this created by nonsense, because the show is created, truthfully, by 500 people every week.
To do what I do, the only thing that bothers me is whether or not I'm relevant any longer. Because I think if you're sitting on these shows, but you're not having hit records or hit artists in your real life, I think you look a bit of an idiot. So that's all I really care about, Dan, is that I can sit on one of these shows and justify why I'm there, because in my day job, I am creating hit artists. Otherwise, you're just a judge for hire, which I just couldn't do. Something I've learned in life, you've got to be really, really good at something. You know, for you to really achieve what you want, you've got to have that dedication, you've got to have that talent.
It wasn't the best of times, but then again, when I look back on it, it wasn't the worst of times. You know, because I think particularly here in Hollywood, where most people get it wrong is they're afraid of losing what they've got. They're just terrified of losing their fame, as you said, power, money. But actually, once you've lost it, you can always get it back again. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, being ill is worse. So, because I've actually faced what are most people's worst fears and recovered from it, it's not as bad as you think. You know, I didn't lose my confidence. My friends were still my friends. I lived with my parents. And I just saw it as a challenge that I've got to get myself back on my feet again.
When I was young, Dan, I got into the music business via the mailroom. And you kind of hustle your way you know, into the main part of the record company or the music publishing company as it was in those days, and you try and work your way up. And the interesting thing is, it's a business where they invest millions and millions of dollars, but they give you no training. So, you know, when you screw up, and I did in the early days, I mean, I was told in no uncertain terms why I'd made a mistake, and I was taught tough love. And in return, I try and do the same thing back, because the worst thing you can do is, particularly when I do a talent show, if somebody comes in with absolutely no talent whatsoever and absolutely no chance of a career, I think it's a crime to say to these people, we'll take a couple of singing lessons and it will all work out, because it just doesn't work out that way.
How did you get back on your feet? Was there a person who said, you know what, I still believe in you?
I'd say, you know, my dad really more than anything else, because he, you know, when I went back to live there, I mean, you know, they had a nice flat in London. You know, it was fine. I mean,
what did he say to your dad?
He just basically said, look, you've just learned a lesson. You know, he didn't really preach other than you've got to do it properly.
Honest feedback can sometimes be tough to hear, but sometimes it's what we need. Simon Cowell and his 10 Rules of Greatness hopefully motivated you to implement some in your life and utilize them to achieve your goals. What are your goals? Write them in the comments below. And what rules are you going to implement in your life and behaviors to achieve those goals? If you really want to achieve your goals, you have to have a plan of action and move towards them. Take care, and I want to hear how great you are.